transform how policing happens in this country. We want to welcome you to United Against Trump. We are so grateful for you taking the time to hear from us about how we all get to that progressive vision together. It's important for us to really understand that while there is a crisis, we are living through multiple crises, right? We're living through a pandemic. We're living through the crisis of state violence. We're living through a global climate crisis. We are living through multiple crises, and yet we are in the midst of massive opportunity, from the uprisings that have continued in the streets across this country to people bringing their hope for their aspirations for change to the ballot box. Regular people, healthcare workers, grocery store workers, auto workers, folks who have lost their job and are struggling. Regular people are coming together to transform this country. And part of doing that, what we're here to talk about tonight, is defeating Donald Trump in November. Our coalition, United Against Trump, is a range of organizations and communities who are organized and are ready to build our electoral prowess. Our clarity of this moment and the need to defeat Donald Trump and the fascist, racist, authoritarian government that he runs is unwavering. And yet we understand that it is not sufficient for our people to have real freedom. We understand that we are not fighting to go back to the status quo. Our clarity around the need to defeat Trump is not an acquiescence to an agenda that doesn't have our people thriving. It is an acknowledgement that we will fight together in order to ensure that one of the greatest threats to this world is taken out of office in November. And then we will continue to fight after November and every day just as hard as we have under this administration until things like Medicare for all are a reality for everyone in this country. If you want to join us, if you are already clear in your mission, you can go to unitedagainsttrump.org. Again, that's unitedagainsttrump.org right now and tell us you're in. But our goal is by the end of this conversation, after hearing from some of the most incredible activists and organizers across this country, that if you don't do that right now, if you don't go to unitedagainsttrump.org now, that you will do so at the end of this program, because you will be so moved to join this movement to get rid of this president. So with that, let's go ahead and get started and introduce our first speaker. Sarah, take us away.
Hi everyone, my name is Sarah Castro. I'm a student organizer and leader with Student Action, and I am so excited to stand with Senator Sanders and movement organizations across the country united against Trump, because when I got involved in the fight for free college for all and against corporate power, Senator Sanders stood with me and people like me. As a kid growing up in Los Angeles, going to school in a working class community of color, we were told that education alone would guarantee our success and relieve us of the conditions that we were in. And I fully believed that until my grandparents got sick and eventually died from cancer. The hospital bills and the insurance bills that kept rolling in hurt my family for years and shattered that hope. And I knew that as long as big money and corporations have as much power as they have in this country now, there will be no relief. So it meant a lot to me when I started getting involved in the fight against corporate power and racism as a first-year college student in Iowa, that Bernie was right there standing with young people. And he stood with us at our People and Planet First agenda at the Iowa People's Presidential Forum. So Student Action organized young people in Iowa to make sure that Bernie won the caucus. And in 2020, Student Action is organizing young people in every major college town to defeat Trump, because our futures are on the line. My generation has grown up in constant crisis. We were kids during the 2008 recession, the Iraq War, and the election of Donald Trump. And we are now living through a pandemic, another recession, the climate crisis, violent white supremacy, and a $1.7 trillion student debt crisis. Our entire lives have shown us that politics as usual don't work. And as a student organizer himself in Chicago and throughout his career, Senator Sanders has demonstrated that he values the power of young people. And I know that in order to bring me and my people real relief, it's going to take organizing a movement of all of us in this election and beyond.
I think back now in 1981 when we won in Burlington, and I was thinking at that point, one small city could play a role in changing the value system, perhaps, of this country. Tonight, as I stand before you, I think that maybe one small state might go down in history as being the leading state in the fight for a political revolution which takes power away from the multinationals and the wealthy and gives it back to the people where it belongs. Justice! The only way that real change ever takes place is when millions of people stand up and fight back. We don't need a savior. We need a political movement when millions of people. Am I on? Okay. Hello, everybody. Let me thank Jennifer and Sarah for their fantastic work that they have been doing and for their remarks tonight, and thank all of you for what you are doing and for your help during the primary. Many of you endorsed our campaign, and that gives me a great sense of pride. And the reason for that is that, as you have heard me say many, many times, and what I believe from the bottom of my heart, real change never takes place from the top on down. It's always from the bottom on up. And we are the grassroots of America. And we are and will continue to organize working people, Black and white and Latino, Native American, Asian American. We will organize all across this country and continue to build the movement that is now really moving very aggressively forward. And let me just talk a little bit about how much we have accomplished together just in the last 4 years. 4 years ago, we were told that it was a radical idea to guarantee health care as a human right through a Medicare for all single-payer system. Nobody was talking about that. Today, a majority of Americans support that concept, that you cannot lose your health insurance because you lose your job. 4 years ago, we were told that it was a radical idea that we should make public colleges and universities tuition-free. Well, all over the country today, we're seeing community colleges becoming tuition-free. Some states are actually making public colleges and universities tuition-free, making huge progress in that area. 4 years ago, we were told that raising the federal minimum wage to $15 an hour, more than doubling the current minimum wage, that's a crazy, crazy idea. Well, all over America, people said that if you work 40 hours a week, you should not be living in poverty. Massive support for $15 an hour. 7 states have already done it. U.S. House of Representatives have done that as well. 4 years ago, it was considered to be a radical and crazy idea to not only legalize marijuana and expunge the criminal records of those with marijuana convictions. That was considered to be a very, very radical idea. And yet now, once again, people are saying, of course, we have to legalize marijuana. Of course, we understand that the African American and Latino community are disproportionately hit by this awful criminal justice system we have. Yes, let's legalize marijuana. 4 years ago, it was considered off the charts. Nobody was talking about holding police officers criminally responsible when they commit murder. Well, that is not such a radical idea. 4 years ago, bringing about real immigration reform was considered pretty radical, not anymore. So the first point that I want to make is that because of what you and all of us have done at the grassroots level, standing up for working people, prepared to take on the political establishment, take on the economic establishment, fight for justice, whether it's economic, social, racial, environmental justice. We are winning the ideological struggle, and don't forget that for a second. Some people will try to tell you that's not the case. It certainly is the case. And most significantly, the younger generation, which in my view is the most progressive younger generation in history, is strongly supportive of what we are trying to do. Second of all, we are seeing a revolution in the type of people who are stepping up to run for office and represent their communities. Together, our movement is producing the next generation of leaders in our country. And I want you all to think about it. Think about it. We have people like Ilhan Omar, who just won a landslide victory. Rashida Tlaib, landslide victory. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, landslide victory against establishment candidates where an enormous amount of money was spent trying to defeat them. We elected Jamal Bowman. We elected Cori Bush. We elected Montea Jones. This is no small thing. We have taken on the establishment politically, elected some of the most progressive members to the United States Congress, got a couple of more seats out there where I think we have a shot to win. But it's not only congressional races, in legislatures all across the country, in New York State, in Pennsylvania, other states, big changes taking place in the legislature because progressives are winning. In terms of district attorneys, people say district attorneys, that's not a very sexy position. It is enormously important. If you're concerned about criminal justice, we're winning seats all over the country with district attorneys who are saying, you know what, my job as a district attorney is not simply to throw more people in jail. It's to understand the causation of crime. In fact, to lower the number of people who are in jail. That's a revolution, and you guys made that happen. And allow me to state the obvious, that the Democratic establishment has not exactly been recruiting bartenders, school principals, and Black Lives Matters activists to run for Congress. We have, and we have been supporting those candidates. So, bottom line is, I am extremely optimistic, and I'm optimistic because of the work that CPD and all of you are doing. You are standing up and fighting for justice. You know that climate change is very real. You know that we got to take on the fossil fuel industry, and that through a Green New Deal, we can create millions and millions of good paying jobs. So it seems to me that in this moment that we are in, we have two basic tasks in front of us. As you've heard Jennifer and Sarah say, we are now dealing with the most dangerous president maybe in the history of this country. And this is a president who is not only a pathological liar, he not only rejects science, whether it's climate change or the pandemic, attacks doctors and scientists. This is a president who is trying to undermine American democracy. Quite unbelievable, but true. And on top of that, he is a racist and a sexist and a homophobe and a xenophobe and a religious bigot. So you have no choice. We have no choice, because many of the victories that we have won will be in real jeopardy if this guy is reelected. So our job in the next 80 or so days is to do everything that we can to defeat Trump and elect Joe Biden. Do we have differences with Joe Biden? Believe you me, of course we do. And our job is, the day after Biden is elected, is to mobilize our people in the fight for a progressive agenda. And let me tell you something as a United States Senator. And that is, if we can elect Biden, if we can turn the US Senate Democratic, and there is a reasonable chance that we can do that, if we can retain Democratic control in the House, and there's a very strong chance that that will occur. If we can do that, there is a path open for us to really bring about transformative change in this country. Because these people, Democratic leaders, are going to have to listen. We are going to be in the room with them. And we can then move forward aggressively on all of the issues we care about: a corrupt political system, a rigged economy, raising the minimum wage to a living wage, making public colleges and universities tuition free, aggressive action against climate change through a Green New Deal, real criminal justice reform, real immigration reform, real gun safety legislation, protecting women's rights. We will have the power to make real change because we're going to be in the door. We're going to have a lot of strong support in Congress. And because of the work that all you guys are doing, we're going to have grassroots people saying, you know what, you made promises, and now you're going to carry out those promises. So my request to all of you is to do everything that you can in the next 80 or so days to make sure that Trump is defeated, that Biden and Kamala Harris are elected, that we elect Democrats to the Senate, to the House, to district attorney's office, to the state legislature. But the main point that I want to make is what Jennifer and Sarah also made, is that our job is not finished on election day. Day after election, we mobilize and we do everything in our power to finally create a government and an economy and an energy system that works for everybody, not just a handful of billionaires. And real change is not going to be easy. It surely is not, no matter who is in the House, who's in the Senate. We're taking on the most powerful people in the world, whose religion is greed, who want more and more billions, who could care less about kids who are hungry in America today. But we can do it. We can do it. So let's get going. Let's defeat Trump. Let's elect Biden. Let's elect some great candidates around the country. And the day after Biden is elected, let us mobilize our people to create the kind of government and America that we know we can become. So let me thank CPD and all of you who are involved in this effort. Keep up the great work, and I look forward to working with you. Thank you all very much.
Thank you so much, Senator Sanders. Tonight's sponsoring organizations: People's Action, Our Revolution, Mi Gente, United We Dream, Black Voters Matter, Sunrise Movement, Roots Action, Seed the Vote, Generation Rising, and of course, the Working Families Party share in this vision, share in a vision where all of us have what we need. But sometimes that's not enough, because this moment ain't easy for us. Us progressives, this is not an easy moment, and I want to acknowledge that for everyone. And when I feel stuck about the task at hand and what is needed, I have a political leader that I look to in Maurice Mitchell, the director of the Working Families Party. And so, Maurice, I just want to ask you, for those of us who feel conflicted, who feel stuck, who are trying to get where we need to be emotionally to lean into this moment the way our country needs, can you share with us how we get there?
Sure, and thank you so much, Jen. You know, last week, the Working Families Party endorsed Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, and we announced it jointly with our friends at the Center for Popular Democracy Action. And I think it begs to ask why. You know, we endorse because we can't build the country we deserve unless we beat Donald Trump. Every day, Trump underscores the urgency of our mission. Thousands are dead because of his inaction on COVID-19, and millions more face joblessness and eviction. He's caged children and invaded cities, and he's already trying to preemptively disqualify the results of a lawful election. So we're going all out. We're going to talk to the voters Biden needs, and not just about our plan to defeat Trump, but also about our vision for an America that truly cares for everyone. You know, Bernie said it best minutes ago. Just 4 years ago, so many ideas coming from the grassroots, rooted in working people's aspirations, were not seen as viable by some. So let's be clear. In this moment of crisis, voters are demanding bolder visions from their leaders: guaranteed housing, wages and food, Medicare for all, a Green New Deal, a wealth tax, universal childcare, ending police violence and systemic racism against Black people. Politicians adapt to the political weather, but it's our job to create a political climate change. Our endorsement isn't a bet on Joe Biden or any politician. It's a bet on our movements. We can get there, and the path begins with beating Donald Trump. Let's get to work.
I am so excited for this next part. We have an incredible group of folks with us that will be sharing about the great work they are moving forward. Hola, mi nombre es Lisette Chacon. I'm the executive director of a power people-centered organization called Colorado People's Action, and I am also the board president of People's Action. I'm an immigrant from Mexico. I was brought to this country when I was 12 years old, and early on, I saw and experienced the injustices that our immigrant community faces. My family is a mixed status family, and the last couple of years, I have lost family members to deportation. My dad has worked for the last 20 years at a meatpacking plant, and he can't afford to retire. My mom has had to seek medical care in a foreign country because she can't afford to receive the care that she needs here. So I'm in this fight for my family. I'm in this fight for my community, so we can ensure that this country works for all of us, specifically that it works for Black, Indigenous, people of color, and immigrants, not just corporations and the wealthy few. We are clear that defeating Trump is critical. Voting for Biden in the swing states and getting others to do so is the key to a resounding defeat to Trump and his ideals. But let me be really clear here. We are not about Biden versus Trump. It's not about this election only. We are motivated by our desire for big structural change. We believe that the toxic blend of profits before people, corporate power, and white supremacy, what we call capital capitalism, racial capitalism, has to be confronted straight on. We need more power in the hands of the multiracial working class, especially Black, Indigenous, and people of color, not in the hands of a small group of extraordinarily rich white men. That's why we're fighting for long-term things like public control of the economy and democratic control of capital, true racial equity and justice, so that any system that harms Black, Indigenous, and people of color or benefits white people more is changed. At People's Action, we're doing two things to make that happen. We are deep canvassing. We're talking to people, both people who are with us on the issues but cynical about voting, and conflicted but persuadable voters. And we're also creating a down ballot revolution. We are pushing for candidates from our movement like Abraham Ayash to Mandela Barnes to Cristal Murillo. In this panel, you will be hearing from, and I'm so sorry, y'all, if I'm mispronouncing names here, Naomi Holland from the Sunrise Movement, Angela Lang from Block in Milwaukee, Norman Solomon from Roots Action, Cliff Albright from Black Voters Matter, and Carlos Garcia from Mi Gente, as well as Puente in Arizona and the Phoenix City Council. This incredible group of folks will be sharing about the amazing work they are leading to defeat Trump in swing states, how we are going to do that in a way that builds power for moving candidates down ballot, our issues, and how it builds permanent organizations. This election is not just about who gets to the White House for the next 4 years. It's an opportunity for us to build long-term power.
Hi, everyone. My name is Naomi Hollard, and I'm an organizer at Sunrise Movement. Right now, more than ever, my voice, my leadership matters. And I didn't always think that. I didn't always see myself as a leader in the youth movement. Before I was an organizer, I was studying to be a scientist in college. But by 2018, my junior year, Hurricane Maria devastated the Caribbean and hit Guadeloupe, a Caribbean island where my cousins, uncles, and aunts live. I couldn't just sit around anymore, writing up research papers. I couldn't sit around as the Trump administration let thousands of Black and brown folks die in the Caribbean after Hurricane Maria. He threw paper towels at them like their lives were jokes. I couldn't look away as my darker-skinned brother got harassed by police in Milwaukee and Chicago. I had to do something. So I joined the Sunrise Movement and started organizing my campus and brought hundreds into the fight for a more just society, for the Green New Deal. And that's why I voted for Bernie Sanders twice, and I haven't stopped since. Now, I gotta be straight with y'all. If Trump wins, my family will not be safe. He will ignore and let die more Black and brown folks in the Caribbean after the hurricane. More people will pass away insensibly of COVID-19. More families will be split up due to inhumane deportations. Federal agents will continue to unconstitutionally abduct and lock up protesters and political prisoners. We cannot let him win. We have to elect as many leaders into office who will actually act accountable to the popular mandates of our time, to pass a Green New Deal, to pass Medicare for all. In order for our movements to have a fighting chance, we need a foot in the door. We will need a Biden administration to start our hard work ahead. And I know deeply that Biden won't hand Black and collective liberation on a platter. I really, really, really do know this, y'all. But the reality is, big change comes with strong movements, not perfect presidential candidates. I mean, some of our nation's biggest victories from the past century have come during the presidencies of moderate Democrats. The Civil Rights Act, which legislated justice for millions of Black lives across the nation, was signed into law by Lyndon B. Johnson. The New Deal legislation, which gave many, but not all, Americans Social Security and pensions, was signed by a moderate who did not believe in big government spending, FDR. These politicians faced great pressure because youth activists of the time made their demands too loud to be ignored. They were on the streets. They were organized. They were dignified, and they were loud. Does that sound familiar to y'all? I mean, that's why Sunrise Movement, a youth movement to stop the climate crisis and create good jobs, a movement for the Green New Deal, is preparing not just for the election, but for the mobilizations that will happen after. We are prepared for the fight that youth movements from across the nation will lead. Kids will take to the streets, sit in our politicians' offices, keep them up at night. We'll bring our parents and grandparents and uncles and aunts out with us and demand at the top of our lungs the future and present that we deserve. We will organize our schools, our colleges, our churches, and our communities and demand the Green New Deal, Medicare for all, economic justice, and our vision for the future. We are wide awake. We are uniting behind a dawn more powerful than Trump's darkness. A future where we are healthy and can get a good education no matter the zip code, where my family can always get clean drinking water, food, and help rebuilding after hurricanes, where my brother feels safe from police violence walking the streets at night, where we end the climate crisis. We are uniting to make this vision the law of the land, because to choose otherwise is to choose a future ruled by riot suits and baton. It is to leave behind the people and places that we love. Well, y'all, this fight is bigger than Biden. We're going to build power inside and outside of the Democratic Party leading up to the election and far beyond. We'll let lobbyists' phone call go to voicemail. We'll demand that our politicians walk our blocks, listening carefully to our elders and our youngest. We will transform our country and our world to ensure that our present and future is dignified for us all.
Thank you for that, Naomi. That's a hard act to follow, but I appreciate it. I also can resonate with going into college and thinking you're going to have one career path, but the world tells you differently. So my name is Angela Lang. I am the founder and current executive director of BLOC, Black Leaders Organizing for Communities. BLOC launched in November of 2017 as a response to the 2016 election. On one hand, we were devastated, just like everyone else, but we were also incredibly offended that we were blamed for the outcome. Our community was one of the least engaged and most disenfranchised, yet we were to blame, not the people that voted for a white supremacist misogynist. In 2016, Wisconsin went red for the first time since Ronald Reagan. Trump won Wisconsin by 22,748 votes. I should get that number tattooed because I've said it so often. Less than 1 percentage point, 0.7%. In 2018, we defeated former Governor Walker by roughly 1 percentage point. The whole night was an up and down roller coaster, but the final count of the Milwaukee absentee ballots was really what pushed Evers over to victory. Milwaukee is going through it right now, the same way a lot of other cities are. 83 nights of protests, increased tension and corruption with our police department and our fire and police commission. We're also just starting our city budget process for the year, where we continue our divestment work that we started in coalition with groups last year. Nearly 50% of our city budget goes to the police department, while, for example, our health department is funded at roughly 2 to 3%, which houses the Office of Violence Prevention. We feel that is a bit lopsided. We all know that 2020 has been a challenging year. I joke around with friends that every new challenge has been thrown at us feels like another level of Jumanji. But all jokes aside, people are in cages, whether at the border or in our local prisons. Native and Indigenous women are murdered and missing. Black trans women are being killed at an alarming rate. These are all things that we know. White supremacy, transphobia, misogyny, xenophobia, they're all on the ballot in November. We've all read the articles of the importance of communities of color in this election. We've also seen the articles about how important Wisconsin is. BLOC has been working almost 3 years for this moment. We've developed leaders, shifted power in how candidates interact with our community. We really embody the phrase, "You want our vote, come get our vote." Don't